Awful good to get back to civilization. I certainly been seeing some hick towns. Of course the folks there are the best on earth, but gee whiz, those Main Street burgs are slow. And you fellows can't hardly appreciate what it means to be here with a bunch of live ones." "You bet," exulted Orville Jones. "They're the best folks on earth, those small town folks. But oh, mama, what conversation! Why, say, they can't talk about anything but the weather and the Neo Ford. By Hackleman!" "That's right. They all talk just about the same things," said Eddie Swanson. "Don't they, though? They just say the same things over and over," said Vergil Gunch. "Yes, it's really remarkable. They seem to lack all power of looking at things impersonally. They simply go over and over the same talk about Fords and the weather and so on," said Howard Littlefield. "Still, at that, you can't blame 'em. They haven't got any intellectual stimulus such as you get up here in the city," said Chum Frink. "Gosh, that's right," said Babbitt. "I don't want you highbrows to get stuck on yourself, but I must say it keeps a fellow right up on his toes to sit with a poet and with Howard, the guy that put the con in economics. But these small-town boobs, with nobody but each other to talk to, no wonder they get so sloppy and uncultured in their speech and so balled up in their thinking," Orville Jones commented. "And then take our other advantages, the movies, for instance. Those Yapville sports think they're all get out if they have one change of bill a week, where here in the city you got your choice of a dozen different movies any evening you want to name." "Sure, the inspiration we get from rubbing up against high-class hustlers every day and getting jam full of ginger," said Eddie Swanson. "Same time," said Babbitt, "no sense excusing those Rube Bergs too easy. Fellow's own fault if he don't show the initiative to up and beat it to the city, like we did. And just speaking in confidence among friends, they're jealous as the devil of a city man. Every time I go up to Catawba I have to go around apologizing to the fellows I was brought up with because I've more or less succeeded and they haven't. And if you talk natural to 'em, way we do here, and show finesse and what you might call a broad point of view, why, they think you're putting on the side. There's my own half-brother Martin. Runs the little old general store my dad used to keep. Say, I'll bet he don't know there is such a thing as a tux, as a dinner jacket. If he was to come up here now, he'd think we were a bunch of why, gosh, I swear he wouldn't know what to think. Yes, sir, they're jealous." Chum Frink agreed. "That's so, but what I mind is their lack of culture and appreciation of the beautiful. If you'll excuse me for being highbrow, now I like to give a high-class lecture and read some of my best poetry. Not the newspaper stuff, but the magazine things. But say, when I get in the tall grass, there's nothing will take but a lot of cheesy old stories and slang and junk that if any of us were to indulge in it here, he'd get the gate so fast it would make his head swim." Vergil Gunch summed up. "Fact is, we're mighty lucky to be living among a bunch of city folks that recognize artistic things and business punch equally. We'd feel pretty glum if we got stuck in some Main Street burg and tried to wise up the old codgers to a kind of life we're used to here. But by golly, there's this you got to say for 'em. Every small American town is trying to get population and modern ideals, and darn if a lot of 'em don't put it across. Somebody starts planning a Rube Crossroads, telling how he was here in 1900 and it consisted of one muddy street, count 'em, one, and 900 human clams. Well, you go back there in 1920 and you find pavement and a swell little hotel and a first-class ladies' ready-to-wear shop. Real perfection, in fact. You don't want to just look at what these small towns are. You want to look at what they're aiming to become. And they all got an ambition that in the long run is going to make 'em the finest spots on earth. They all want to be just like Zenith." 3. However intimate they might be with T. Cholmondeley Chink as a neighbor, as a borrower of lawn mowers and monkey wrenches, they knew that he was also a famous poet and a distinguished advertising agent, that behind his easiness were sultry literary mysteries which they could not penetrate. But tonight, in the gin-evolved confidence, he admitted them to an arcanum. "I've got a literary problem that's worrying me to death. I'm doing a series of ads for the Zico car, and I want to make each of 'em a real little gem. Regular stylistic stuff. I'm all for this theory that perfection is the stunt, or nothing at all. And these are as tough things as I've tackled. You might think it'd be harder to do my poems, all these heart topics, home and fireside and happiness, but they're cinches. You can't go wrong on 'em. And you know what sentiments any decent go-ahead fellow must have if he plays the game, and you stick right to 'em. But the poetry of industrialism, now there's a literary line where you got to open up new territory. Do you know the fellow who's really the American genius? The fellow who you don't know his name, and I don't either, but his work ought to be preserved so future generations can judge our American thought and originality today. Why, the fellow that writes the Prince Albert tobacco ads. Just listen to this. It's P.A. that jams such joy in Jiminy Pipes. Say, bet you've often bent an ear to that spill of speech about hopping from 5 to 50 per by stepping on her a bit. Guess that's going some, all right, but just among ourselves, you'd better start a rapid whiz system to keep tabs as to how fast you'll buzz from low-smoke spirits to tip-top high. Once you line up behind a Jiminy Pipe, it's all aglow with such a peach of a pal, Prince Albert. Prince Albert is John on the job, always joyously more-ish in flavor, always delightfully cool and fragrant. For a fact, you never hooked such a double-decked, copper-riveted, two-fisted smoke enjoyment. Go to a pipe. Speedo quick like you light on a good thing. Why, packed with Prince Albert, you can play a joyously Jimmy straight across the boards, and you know what that means. Now that, caroled motor agent Eddie Swanson, that's what I call he literature, that Prince Albert fellow. Though, gosh, there can't be just one fellow that writes 'em. Must be a big board of classy ink slingers in conference. But anyway, now he doesn't write for long-haired pikers. He writes for regular guys. He writes for me, and I tip my beanie to him. The only thing is, I wonder if it sells the goods. Course, like these poets, this Prince Albert fellow lets his idea run away with him. It makes elegant reading, but it don't say nothing. I never go out and buy Prince Albert tobacco after reading it, because it doesn't tell me anything about the stuff. It's just a bunch of fluff. Frink faced him. "Oh, you're crazy. Have I got to sell you the idea of style? Anyway, that's the kind of stuff I'd like to do for the Zico, but I simply can't. So I decided to stick to the straight poetic, and I took a shot at a highbrow ad for the Zico. How do you like this? The long white trail is calling, calling, and it's over the hills and far away for every man or woman that has red blood in his veins, and on his lips the ancient song of the buccaneers. It's away with dull drudging, and a fig for care. Speed, glorious speed. It's more than just a moment's exhilaration. It's life for you and me. This great new truth the makers of Zico car have considered as much as price and style. It's fleet as the antelope, smooth as the glide of a swallow, yet powerful as the charge of a bull elephant. Class breathes in every line. Listen, brother, you'll never know what the high art of hiking is till you try life's zipping a zest, the Zico." "Yes," Frink mused, "that's got an elegant color to it, if I do say so, but it ain't got the originality of Spill of Speech." The whole company sighed with sympathy and admiration. End of Chapter 8.